Welcome back to Invest Africa. Under the presidency of Alassane Ouattara, the country has embarked on several reform programs, all aimed at reversing a decade of economic decline due to civil war and political instability. Let's check this report.
Cote d'Ivoire has continued to make strides in normalizing its socio and political environment, and to ensure its economy continues to recover, the government has been pursuing structural reforms in key sectors of the economy.
There's a lot of focus in the energy sector. They want to ramp up their production of electricity. The transportation is quite critical because being an agricultural-based economy, you produce your agricultural commodities and you want to take them to market, so you need a strong transportation sector that can actually then take, your cocoa, your rubber to the port so that it can then be exported. You've also seen in telecommunications, you have to strengthen the telecommunications. We've got big companies such as Sonatel, which are actually not of Ivorian origin, but it's a kind of part of a regional trading bloc, which is quite integrated. So you find those sectors have really been quite key.
As a precondition for an IMF-backed debt relief deal, the government launched a cocoa reform with the aim of ensuring sustainable livelihoods to cocoa growers and encouraging them to boost output while reinvesting in their aging and sometimes neglected plantations. Although agriculture still remains a critical part of the Ivorian economy, the dynamics of the country will be changing, with Cote d'Ivoire looking to strengthen their ties when it comes to regional trade.
You're going to find that the critical mass comes in them being part of a regional trading bloc. And that way they're able to expand their reach from, say, 20 million population to about 100 million population within that region. And then you find that intra-region trading, because the UEMOA is actually a trading bloc that looks at both trade and currency, a common currency. So you find Cote d'Ivoire is actually able to use its size to access the other local markets, such as the Benins, the Togos, the Nigers.
The country has felt the damaging effects of war and political divisions, but with good infrastructure, natural resources and progressive reforms, Cote d'Ivoire should be able to recover economically and find itself back on the path of the political stability it used to have. Tumisho Mahanyele, Johannesburg.
Still with me in studio, Ebenezer Esoka, CEO of Standard Chartered Bank Southern Africa, Ronak Gopaldas, Country Risk Analyst at RMB, and joining us from our bureau in Lagos, Alain Saraka, AVP, Credit Risk Management of Africa Finance Corporation. Gentlemen, in the last segment, we were talking about the currency, and our guest in Cape Town was talking about the currency peg. I'd like to direct my first question to you, Ebenezer, in terms of the monetary policy. Do you sense that there is enough clarity around this, and what does this tell the business environment in terms of opportunities for investing in Cote d'Ivoire?
I think as a business I run a business that's registered in Cote d'Ivoire, that's operating in Cote d'Ivoire, the currency peg definitely gives me an indication of where my profit should be and where my dividends should be. So there is an element of consistency over time, and I appreciate that. The real challenge here is that that country doesn't have control of its monetary policy. And for any economy to be enabling, you must be able to have a control of both your fiscal and monetary policy. But what you have across francophone Africa is that monetary policy is decided within the context of a regional conversation, including the French. So the European Central Bank has a role to play here. My issue there is the timing of policy decisions at times is a bit off, and generally doesn't give you the enabling policy mix in terms of fiscal and monetary to ensure that the right economic decisions are taken in a timely and orderly manner.
Alain from Lagos, I'd like to bring you in. If you heard what Ebenezer said, do you think that Cote d'Ivoire's monetary policy is clear enough?
Monetary policy is not an asset that the government can use and to improve the situation in the country. Actually, the monetary policy is depending on the West African Central Bank, and everybody has to align to the policy and the decision taken by this institution. So I mean the maneuver for the government in West Africa is very limited because of that. But actually, if you look at the inflation, for instance, I think that the situation is not as bad as we can we can fear if you don't have a control of your monetary policy. Another asset for the country of the region, and Cote d'Ivoire is one of them, is that the anchor to the European currency, which is an asset for countries like Cote d'Ivoire, of which economy is based mostly on export of raw products.
Ronak, your views?
Yeah, I think I'd echo what both of the other guests are saying about monetary policy. On the one hand, you've got macroeconomic management being prudent. You've got low inflation. On the other hand, the value of exports is seen to be diluted, and you've also got the issue with timing around decisions. I think an important point that I want to touch on is in relation to the country's Eurobond. Since the height of the crisis, yields on that have fallen 700 basis points, which is, in my opinion, an important proxy of sentiment towards the country. Being a post-conflict state, I think the country has a lot of challenges. I've mentioned them. And I don't think it will be sunshine and roses. There are going to be a lot of challenges to overcome. We expect low-level violence to persist through the country. The West is traditionally unstable. But I think after the initial consolidation phase, the Ouattara regime is starting to understand the security challenges. Reconciliation is important in the sense that victors' justice is seen to be perpetrated, and I think now with the postponement of the regional and local elections coming up in April, to get the FBI on board and create an inclusive, holistic political environment, I think we are going to see some positives in that regard.
All right, so Ronak, your points are about security. Ebenezer, we've got just under a minute and a half. Your view on Cote d'Ivoire in terms of doing business in Cote d'Ivoire, is it a good thing right now?
Well, positive. I maintain an optimistic bias to Cote d'Ivoire. Firstly, the president has come up, or the ruling party and the government have come up with the National Development Plan that is going to be a bill of approximately $22 billion US, 4 billion funded by the state, 8 billion by the French under the bilateral agreement, and an additional 10 billion that will be funded from for the negotiations with institutions such as the African Development Bank, IFC, etc. So I'm positive about that. Secondly, I think the point that was made earlier, you have municipal elections taking place soon. That will progress the reconciliation process and open up the doors for business to flourish in Cote d'Ivoire. We are absolutely optimistic about the prospects of Cote d'Ivoire, and I believe under the leadership of President Ouattara, that will make a difference in that nation. He's got the networks, he's well connected, and is well briefed on what needs to be done, and is open to input from businesses across the region.